Glad to have Elana Freeland back on the program. We've talked with her several times on the show, but it's been over a year since she was last with us. She is a writer, ghostwriter, teacher, and lecturer. Her researches and writes on deep state issues like the geoengineering operations, MK Ultra, ritual abuse, targeting, and invasive electromagnetic weapons. She's got several books, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. Also, Transhumanism, How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetics, and Nanotechnology for Synthetic Biology. Elana Freeland, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
So good to have you here. What do you think about, the weather going on? I don't know what it's like. I think you're up in Washington State. I'm down here in Oregon, so we're here right in the Pacific Northwest. Here we've been getting strange stuff like, hail, snow, wind and rain, and we don't usually get it this late in the year. What's it been like for you?
Oh, about the same, I think. And it has been not a difficult winter, but there's been a lot of chemical downfall in the misty rain and the endless clouds and the on-off of the rain throughout this. You remember last spring, Jeremy? It really didn't happen until, I think, June. Do you remember that?
No, actually.
Yeah, because I came back at the end of April, early May, first week of May, from a book tour I did in the Southwest, and all of May was chilly and cold and rainy. So I think what we're looking at is not climate change. I believe that. I believe it's a cover story. It's not global warming. It's actually this geoengineering that's going on endlessly as a political weapon, I suppose I'd have to say. And if I'm looking at things now of aberrant or anomaly weather that everybody's having, I think a lot of people are, right? It's snowing and all sorts of things are going on. Some of them are definitely political in nature, and then others of them are, I would assume, experimental, still working with the atmosphere to completely control the weather. I wrote about that in 2014, and then again in 2018, and then now I'm really rolling on into a whole way of looking at geoengineering for its other seven operations. There are, and I'd love to share that list with you like I did last time. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, because we've got a new audience, and I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, because I am not one of the people that sees geoengineering as, first of all, as something that they're just considering because of the scary global warming or climate change that they keep pushing on us for fear porn. But I definitely know that there is no natural weather. There is none now. It is all artificial intelligence run, and they've worked out the kinks. That's been in the last 2.5 decades they've had to work out the kinks. And so the weather engineering is primary, no doubt about it, because you can get a lot of energy from storms, for example, electrical storms. So it lies at the base of just about everything else that's going on by the geoengineers. This list that I have is from the scientist Clifford Carnicom, whom I worked with about 12, 13 years ago when he was studying what was coming down from the chemical trails. They were not contrails. I rarely see a contrail now. It has to be really high and has to be a small jet because the contrails are condensation trails, and they're just really short and they dissipate within 15 to 30 seconds at the most. Whereas the long trails that we keep seeing in the sky, all of them have a chemical signature, And they are chemicals. They are not at all just water condensation and particulates. So let's kind of get our heads wrapped around that and move forward a little bit. I get really tired of that question, but I understand because the mainstream media are not really informing the public about what geoengineering is really up to. It's mainly lies and subterfuge. So weather engineering is operation number one. The second operation is electromagnetics and chemicals. And that's going on all the time in our atmosphere. You can't see much of it, but you do see on the horizon, if you look up, even on a so-called blue sky day, which believe me, 25, 30 years ago, the blue sky idea was deep blue, not this baby blue stuff that everybody thinks is a blue sky day. But you look on the horizon of a blue sky day, and you will see it looks like there's a lot of white fluff along the horizon, and that is definitely chemical. And all these chemicals have nanotechnology in them. That's really key to understanding what's going on now. The nanotechnology revolution happened in the 90s, and it was very quiet. In fact, I don't think that nanotechnology was brought before Congress, the US Congress, until 2002, when it was mentioned as in the NDAA of that era, a budgetary line item. But what we're seeing in the sky now, everywhere, whether you can actually visually see it or not, maybe you'll just see a discoloration of the blue, or you'll see the rain is not really rain. It's more like a strange mix of mist and rain. These are all signs of the nanotechnology that's being dumped up in the stratosphere for military operations, but it's also for a great deal more. I have realized over writing 3 books that we're really deep in the realm of synthetic biology now. And all of this is the nano. As soon as you hear the term nano, you've got to realize that you're talking submicron. You're talking very tiny. In fact, a nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. So the chemicals that are being dumped from above are really loaded with nanoparticles and nanotechnology and nanosensors and nanorobots or nanobots. And that's really key to seeing that this is about a lot more than controlling the weather. So the third operation is planetary and geophysical things that are going on. Of course, we know that under this, we have to talk about disaster capitalism and how much money they make off of destroying all sorts of infrastructure through storms, hurricanes, floods, fires, droughts, tornadoes, earthquakes, polar vortices, solar cycles, so-called. All of this is about making money off of disaster. And that's probably how we've gotten the last mile or two out of this fraction reserve capitalism that we've allowed the bankers to convince us of. So that, notice I mentioned fires in that. I wanted to just say a word about that. Speaking of nanotechnology, the fires, like let's take the California fires, for example, even though I could take the Colorado fires too, and Idaho and everywhere else, but California fires, let's go back to Paradise, California, when that entire town was pretty much destroyed by fire. There are drone footages, and I've seen 2, of the strange way that the so-called, quote, wildfires, unquote, were operating in the California fires that went on in 2017, 2018, 2019, et cetera. What really, one of the things that happened is I was watching Jamie Lee. He is a Plain Truth is his moniker, and he's a videographer. He did a series of 100 videos of the California Paradise Fire because he lives very near there and he was very upset by what happened there. So he goes into great detail about how the fire was created, how it was guided, and he has on video number 51 a what is called a materials scientist. Now, this was an anonymous guy. He didn't want to give his name, but he is retired from making nanos and being a nanotech expert. And he sat in on the video footage that Jamie had acquired of a drone footage. And so I'm watching it and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that these embers are just speeding across the ground and whirling this way and that way. And I'm thinking, wow, the wind must have been really powerful that day to see all these embers flying about. But they were flying about in a strange way, in an almost a Roman phalanx way. And what I realized was I wasn't looking at embers. I was actually looking at nanotechnology that was being directed, I assumed, remotely from perhaps a laptop somewhere, maybe in Colorado Springs, and what they were doing is they would go in a certain direction and then they would crawl up the wall of a home, and then ignite a fire. And then the rest of the nanos would continue on their trail. They would skip the next home and they would skip the next home and they'd skip that tree and they'd skip this and that. And then they'd end up at some other dwelling and crawl up that wall and start that fire. Then I saw them speeding down the road to yet another housing division of the wealthy, the semi-wealthy. And again, I saw what looked like embers, but the way they moved in a phalanx, I mean, a typical V shape, I realized that, my gosh, the nanotechnology can be used for that as well. So where did they get these nanos?
We're with Elana Freeland tonight talking about how wildfire is used as a weapon, really how nanotech is used as a weapon. Please continue, Elana.
All right, so I talked about the swarms that looked like Roman army phalanxes going from one house to another, skipping certain houses according to instructions seemingly coming from remote distances of somebody sitting on a laptop directing this nano army with a so-called wildfire. So it's great that I'm on the Parabnormal show because this sounds incredibly abnormal.
Oh, absolutely.
And yet nanotech is really the name of the game now. And if I were to say what is crucial about it, it's that it's tininess. It's as though we did the Manhattan Project back in 1945 with the huge detonating force that was from experimentation going on the atomic level. Well, that's exactly what nanotech is. It's on the atomic level. It's a nano is with one atom laid next to another atom, next to another atom, next to another atom, etc. And that's the key, is this too is an atomic level science and therefore is exceedingly dangerous. Now, that's just one example. Let me finish my list because that had to do with the planetary geophysical operations, right? That they're using nano. But go on to the next one, directed energy weapons. Directed energy weapons used to mean something coming from space, like Star Wars weapons, something plasma beam weapons, laser beam weapons. But now, actually, the directed energy weapons problem is even more so now that they're starting the smart cities and the whole idea of the environment being weaponized. So you have nanosensors everywhere. We're breathing them in. They're in our bodies. They're in our brain because a nano size can get through the blood-brain barrier very easily. The entire environment has been, in a way, turned itself into a directed energy weapons repository due to the Internet of Things, the Internet of Bodies, the Internet of Nano Things. All of this can be used as energy reserves for targeting various situations, various individuals, populations, etc. So that's what directed energy weapons means now. Then the fifth operation is the surveillance and neural manipulation. And that has to do with neural manipulation, obviously, is mind control. And that can be done from space now.
Bipolar Vortex tonight. I'm Jeremy Scott, talking geoengineering this hour with Elana Freeland, who is about ready to get to geoengineering operation number 6.
Hey, Jeremy. All right, so in this list of 7 operations, just to expand people's horizons as to what geoengineering is really up to, the 6th operation is the one that I pretty much spend most of my time on in the 3rd book, Geoengineered Transhumanism. This is about nanotech, and I've talked some about that already. It's about digital biology, and it's about transhumanism. So the digital biology part is very interesting. We, up till now, have had molecular biology. You have cells and you have molecules, and it's all a matter of chemistry and what is organic. And now the digital biology is how things are being done. And that takes some explanation because we're so conditioned to think of virus, bacteria, germs, all the germ warfare method that we have stuck to in the West for the last, I'd say 150 to 200 years, is now being changed to digital. And that means being able to transmit the frequencies of disease states or symptoms, sets of symptoms, and that can be broadcast and sent through 5G and 6G systems. This is actually going on full bore right now, but hardly anyone is recognizing that that's what's going on because it takes a culture about 50 years to accustom itself to a new idea. Pretty scary, huh? Because the digital aspect of this is really is so front and center, as the last 3 years have shown, while the press has done everything it can to convince people that it is due to a virus, which Tom Cowan, MD, he wrote a book and proved that there is no virus, that a virus is actually some genetic debris inside a cell that is sort of being put out for the garbage man. And it's so hard for people to grasp that health is more due to balance in how you live and how you eat and how you take care of your body than it is due to an assault. The so-called war model of the West is pretty tired now, and they are moving toward the digital transmission of disease symptoms to people. I know that sounds really like science fiction, But they self-admit, they being the medical industry and big pharma, admit all the time that they are moving from a molecular biology to a digital biology. So that's very important, because we could all end up being transmitted to and being locked into a certain state of health or dishealth just because of 5G and 6G systems. And I don't mean that it's the electromagnetic frequency of the systems themselves that are the worst news. That's bad enough news right there. But that they are now being used for the transmission of symptoms of disease. The nanotech, of course, I mentioned how it works in fires. And now, the next scary part is that it's coming down from the sky in aerosols, and it's also being injected into people's bodies, as we know. A lot of nanotechnology there. And that all of this nanotechnology is actually connected to remote systems of electromagnetic nature that can run our bodies and our brains, our thoughts, our behaviors, our moods, our emotions. And all of this has been done right in front of us in the environment, in the industry. And of course, being regular people, paying our mortgages, going to work, raising the kids, all of that. We have been busy, and it's taken us by storm in the last 3 years that they have that a certain level of excellence on the one hand, in the sense of science being weaponized in an extraordinary way, a very covert, subtle way, so that when people get sick or they have chronic health problems, they immediately take the blame themselves and don't realize that it could actually be the environment. So that's part of this sixth operation, is looking deeply at the nanotech aspect of it. And then the transhumanism is what it's all for. And this took me 3 books, Jeremy, to realize that it was really the end result of geoengineering is actually a transhuman model of the human being, going from human 1.0 to human 2.0. And in my opinion, and I say this in the 3rd book, I build the whole case there. That's why the book is so long. This has been what the last 3 years are really about. Not about a pandemic, not about a virus, and it's really about the final creation, I suppose you'd have to say, of a transhuman race that is underway right now due to the jabs. And there are two ways to look at the jabs when you really examine it. You've got a genetic arm of it, which is the mRNA and the spike proteins, which really are there to create frequency-bound disease symptoms that can be activated in people at a distance through the 5G and 6G systems. And then you have the other arm of this assault on the human being, the human 1.0. The other is the tiny computer parts that are now being found in dark field microscopy by doctors and researchers. That is actually, you could see routers, you could see circuit boards. There are all sorts of computer parts in the body. And I assume also the software is going in, so that people can potentially be controlled, again, remotely, through the graphene oxide, through the hydrogel, through the quantum dot technology, and turned into, I would assume, a slave race. So this has all been done, and the technology is just phenomenal. I can understand why people leap to the conclusion that this must be aliens, must be doing this from off planet, because this is far too sophisticated for humans to conceive of. But this has been going on for decades and decades, this development that we see genetically and cybernetically, for changing genes and for overcoming the brain and creating brain-computer interfaces with artificial intelligence. So, we don't need to use the future tense anymore. We can use the present tense, because it's all underway right now. And the only reason I've spent so much energy on the geoengineering is, yes, to explain how the system works, with HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, and all the other ionospheric heaters, and CERN, and all the infrastructure of the space fence that I write about in the second book. All of this has to do with control over the planet in a Kardashevian way. Kardashev was a Soviet astronomer, and he laid out 3 steps to being able to really claim, of culture to claim, that it has a true space age. And that is 1, full spectrum dominance over your planet. And then number 2, full spectrum dominance over your star, which would be our sun. And then 3, full spectrum dominance over the planetary system and the galaxy. So all of this, amazingly, as I was proceeding through these 3 books, I was discovering one layer of, like an onion, one layer after another, getting down to the core, and finding that the core was where I had started originally with Clifford Carnicom's discovery of the Morgellons creature that many people have suffered from, this little creepy looking pathogen that when it pokes itself out of people's skin, there are many wires connected with it that are very electromagnetically sensitive, going all the way from the Morgellons that is being delivered from the stratosphere, along with everything else that I've described, the heavy metals, the chemicals, all of it, the nanotech, that really, when you get down to it, it really is about synthetic biology and forming another type of life on the planet, but an artificial, in a way, silicon-based, carbon-based, inorganic life form. And that is really the direction we're headed with the geoengineering. I know it sounds absolutely not preposterous. I don't think there's anyone laughing about this, but it sounds so big and so amazing that it's hard to wrap your head around it. And it's even been hard for me to wrap my head around it. But now I'm absolutely certain that I'm right. And I'm writing books for a publishing company called Inner Traditions, which
awesome.
Yeah. They asked me for a second edition of, but they want me to split it into 2 books so that it's not so intimidating to people to read a 650-page book, which is what the geoengineered transhumanism is. So I've already written the easier primer for geoengineering with some emphasis on synthetic biology, and now I'm starting the synthetic biology book with an
Elana Freeland, tell us how these electronics are being used by weapons, and the military is involved in this?
Well, the military-industrial intelligence complex is pretty much everywhere. It's throughout society now. Certainly Eisenhower warned us on his way out of office, and it's too late now to sever that. But what I try to concentrate on with people is how to survive this struggle with technology and those who control it, so that we can remain human. It's a very humble position, but believe me, it's very challenged now, especially after the last 3 years. So what I recommend to people is examine your living situation, get rid of all those toys that you think are so cool, and those that give you the fast downloads and the Alexas and all of that. Think of it instead as waves moving through your organic body and what it's doing to you and your children. Sleep in a bedroom with no electromagnetics whatsoever, and that includes a TV or a clock radio or anything like that. Sleep on a bed that has no metal in it, because the metal acts as an antenna for all the waves moving through your domicile from your neighbors. So, it's like living like a paranoid, I suppose. It sounds very similar, but it isn't just paranoia. This is there really is something after you, and it's called electromagnetics. As far as the sky goes, yes, you are ingesting all sorts of things, breathing them in, eating them in GMO foods. If you're still eating GMOs, you really need to stop and eat organic, even though the organic food is getting all the stuff coming down from the sky as well. At least the seed is of Mother Nature and is not synthetic, which is what GMO seed is. It's synthetic. So in a way, and definitively, the food of GMO is really not food. So these are things that, unless you look into where the devil is in the details, right? You've got to look into detail. And that's sort of my job. If you want the book, the Geoengineered Transhumanism, or any of the books I've written, everything is carried at a tiny bookstore in Seattle, Washington, called the Rudolf Steiner Bookstore. I highly recommend that you buy there. The Geoengineered Transhumanism book is a little more there because it's the color edition, and there are 60 illustrations. And then I have the Elana Freeland website, www.elanafreeland.com. My web mistress takes care of all that, bless her heart. And then I post every morning on the one Facebook site that Facebook is still allowing me, and then I post at gab.com as well on geoengineering, but also on other subjects that are interesting, because we are living in amazing times. And rather than being afraid, thank your lucky stars that you are here, because just so much is going on. And it's a delight for those who really love knowledge, like myself.
You mentioned slave race. Could it go even further than that? Could this be intentional genocide, which is something I brought up earlier?
Well, I think instead of genocide, because we're so valuable as experimental lab rats, I think I would say that there is definitely a culling going on. And truthfully, Jeremy, you might appreciate this. A Steiner book has come out from some Rudolf Steiner people in Europe that indicates that people who have been jabbed a few times, on the other side, after they die, they are having a great deal of trouble with their soul life. So this could be much more than it looks like. And we need to really explore these things and think very seriously about having any interface with big pharma or big medicine. They cannot be trusted. I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13. I'm 75.
You're not going to start now. AlanaFreeland.com. And her website book links up at parabnormalradio.com. Always good to talk with you, Elana. Glad to hear you're doing well.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You take care, and until next time, friends, which is tomorrow night, from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest. Good night, and God bless.